Welcome to Razorpay Rise. Joining us today is Nipun Jain, Director at Razorpay, who is currently leading Razorpay Rise Company Registration Services, which has helped over 20,000 founders bring their dream companies to life. Today, we're breaking down one of the most important questions every new founder faces. What is the right company structure for me? Let's start with the basics.
So starting a business is a big decision. You need to have an idea. You need to also know where you will fund your initial idea with. And also, what is the most important thing is the right structure to start a company. So there are multiple ways to start a company. You must have heard indirectly or directly people saying that, okay, I either operate as a sole proprietor. You might have heard people telling you that, okay, I have a partnership firm. And then when we go more towards a little more structured ways of starting business, you might have heard terms like private limited, limited liability partnerships, and something called as one person company. So in this video, let's try to break it down and understand with some examples or some analogies, what are these 5 different type of company registrations and who should opt what, depending on their business, depending on their goals, and depending on a lot of other very personal goals you want to achieve with your business. So let's start with something which is very basic and the most common: sole proprietorship. I think in India, we have lakhs and lakhs of sole proprietorship because every single business owner you see as a shopkeeper, every single business owner you see as a factory owner are most probably operating as a sole proprietorship. It's a very simple way of starting a business. Here, the owner and the business are one single entity. Very limited paperwork, one single bank account, one GST number, and you will be able to operate your business at any scale you want. The only caveat is that, okay, in a sole proprietorship, your liability is not limited. That means if business profits are yours, equally the losses are also yours. So sole proprietorship doesn't give you that advantage of keeping you separate from your business entity. Coming next to something very simple and very straightforward, what we call as partnership firm. Imagine now that, okay, you want to start a business and you also have a partner. You want to divide responsibilities. You don't want to start solo. That's where partnership firm is a great way to start. Again, very simple, very limited paperwork. The liability also gets divided, but it still remains unlimited. So that becomes the second most common way to start a business. So let's now talk about the 3 structured and formal ways to register a company. First, let's talk about private limited company. So private limited as a concept is most preferred by startups. Why? Because investors always prefer private limited as a structure. Private limited allows you to, let's say, split your equity as and when you grow. It allows you to issue ESOPs, for example. It gives you credibility. It also gives you a lot of structure on papers. Why it is important? We'll try to stitch it back to our shortcomings of a sole proprietorship, let's say. So we discussed that, okay, in a sole proprietorship, your liability is not limited. But in a private limited, you and your company are completely 2 separate legal entities. One of the most common reason why people opt for a private limited. So it gives you limited liability. It is highly attractive to founders and investors. It provides you flexibility to issue ESOPs in future. And of course, it is the most formal way to register a company. So go for a private limited if your goals are around building a long-term startup, which is definitely looking to raise funds and which is definitely looking to grow and scale as you proceed in your journey. So the only thing here is that, of course, with a private limited company, you will have to be more compliant. What I mean to say by this is that, okay, you may have to get into auditing. You may have to also file annual compliances. You may also have to have a full-time dedicated CA or an in-house team to manage your day-to-day compliances. But it's something which is worth taking. If you want to play a longer game, if you want to play a game which might make your company a tomorrow's unicorn, then this is the right way to start a company. Next, now imagine that, okay, you may not want to create a unicorn. You may not want to raise funds, but you still want to create a company which is more formal and more structured than, let's say, a partnership firm. That's where the concept of limited liability partnership comes. It actually says within its name that, okay, it's a limited liability partnership. So it is almost like operating on a partnership firm, but now it gives you benefits of having limited liability, credibility, and a structured formal company. Why it is important? Now you may want to, let's say, not want to raise funds at all, but you also don't want to work on a structure where nothing is defined. So that's where people like consultants, people like, let's say, some freelancers who are working with a partner opt for something called limited liability partnership. It does include compliances, it does include a lot of day-to-day requirements you have to monitor and you have to file with Ministry of Corporate Affairs. But if you want to again play a long-term game, then you have to start also as a structured company. And in this case, if you have a partner, you don't want to raise funds, limited liability partnership becomes your go-to way to start a company. Now, the last but not the least, we can talk about OPC, which is a one-person company. Imagine I want to start a private limited company, but I don't have a partner or I don't have a co-founder. That's where OPC comes in place. You can start as a private limited, as a solo founder, follow everything what a typical private limited company follows, and still you can create a company, start a company, and register with Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It gives you advantages which are specific to private limited, but also, let's say, tomorrow you want to add co-founders, tomorrow you want to raise funds. So the good thing is you can always convert a one-person company to private limited company. So it's okay to start solo, it's okay to start as a one-person company. You can always convert. So see, all of these structures are having some merits and some demerits. You need to understand what are your short-term goals and long-term goals. It's okay to start a sole proprietorship, then later get it converted to private limited. It's okay to start a OPC and then let's later get converted to a private limited company. But one thing I will advise, if you are not sure, if you don't have a clear path of, let's say, next 2-3 years, then don't just jump directly into, let's say, something complicated, something tedious like a private limited company also. So decide, write it down on papers, what is the right structure, what are my goals, and then just go for it. And still you might make some mistakes, still you might not choose the right structure. Again sit, again make notes, again try to see your next 2-3 years of roadmap, and then try to reiterate according to that. So I hope this clears you that what are the 5 different type of companies which you can register and why something makes sense for, let's say, A versus B. And it's always you who will finally decide what is the best company for me to start. And we at Razorpay Rise understands that deciding and starting a company is not easy. And that's where with Razorpay Rise, we have already helped more than 20,000 companies starting their dream company. So if you wish to know more about how to start, where to start, and what is the right structure for me, do check out Razorpay Rise company registration. We are here to help you.